This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under 18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 541 for December 14th-ish, 2017. Coming up on today's show, an interview with film director Isa Lutine about Lutine the film. Hello everyone, I'm your host Minx, and I am super excited to bring you an episode that is a little late this week, as they tend to be in December, but chock full of such amazing goodness. We have all kinds of poly in the news, because I got a little bit behind. We have poly holiday tips. We have an amazing interview by our South African correspondent, Erich Viege, with the French film director Isabelle Broué, also known as Isa Lutine, about her film about polyamory. So much good stuff coming up. I just can't wait to get to it, so let's get to it. First up, our friend Kathy Labriola was kind enough to share with us her poly survival guide for the holidays. Kathy Labriola is a counselor, nurse, and poly educator, and she shared with us an extremely long document that she gave permission for us to do as a blog post about tips on how to survive the holidays when you're polyamorous. Now, I know that some of the holidays have already passed. We're getting close to some more holidays. We're smack dab in the middle of Hanukkah already, but she gives 8 very substantial tips on how to make the holidays pass with a little bit less anxiety, including things like think through what would be an ideal situation for you, make time to have conversations with each partner and with each family member about what their needs and desires and fears are for all of the upcoming holidays, make lists. Make sure you talk about holiday gift traditions, because those are different in different families. You don't want any surprises. All kinds of really great advice. And that's the latest blog post up at polyweekly.com. If you click on blog, you will find the Poly Survival Guide for the holidays. I'll also provide a link in the show notes. There has been a lot of poly in the news going on, and we got a little behind last week, so a couple extra items in this week's news segment. First of all, from December 8th, Alan of the Poly in the News blog wrote about a sudden abundance of Black and poly film and web series, which is fantastic. He does a great compilation post of a couple of web series and films that have been coming out over the last couple of months. First of all, 195 Lewis. This is a poly web series. Full disclosure, I have not seen it yet. I've heard about it, but it's about a Black lesbian couple trying to practice radical honesty, and it's a web series so you can binge watch everything at once. I think there's only 5 episodes, so I need to sit down and watch it, and you probably should too. It's getting really good reviews. And then he also brings up, of course, an older web series, Jackie Stone's 13-episode series Compersion, and you may recall that we interviewed her along with some of the cast members here on the show. And yeah, it's a little bit older, but it's still really good, and it still falls within the realm of recent experience. And I love that Alan Quotes Pepper is warning you that, look, this is going to hurt to watch because it is an accurate picture of the difficulties of trying to open up relationship. We watched it, and dude, there's so many points when we cringe and scream, no, don't do that, no. But as Jackie Stone pointed out when she talked to us, she's like, I didn't want to paint something that was an ideal picture. I wanted to paint the way that people really do it. And when people really do poly, they make mistakes, and they make the same mistakes that you did. So yeah, it's a little tough. There's apparently a documentary film, 27 minutes long, called Poly Love that Amazon Prime just picked up. I haven't seen this either. I'm so behind on my viewing. And he points out, and while we're at it, there's a Black comedian, DeRay Davis, that's been making a splash, coming out as poly. And he provides a link to an article in the Atlanta Black Star, which is kind of cool. So he's a wealth of resources and videos and films, things going on in terms of Black and poly. So if you're curious, I will provide a link in the show notes. Next up from December 14th, you guys, I keep saying this, we have made it. Polyamory is a thing. In fact, it's such a thing, it's starting not to be a thing. Yes, polyamory became a top relationship search topic in 2017. That's right. So at the end of every year, Google announces the top trending search term as compared to the previous year. And in the relationships category, Google just announced that polyamory became one of the top 4 topics. Seriously, we're in the top 4. From the article, people wanted to know how to make long-distance relationships work, how to change their Facebook status, what it meant to be polyamorous or in an open relationship, and how to know when it's all over. I would argue that all of those are really important, with the possible exception of your Facebook status, because, dude, that's just so easy. But apparently, the topic of polyamory saw a 130% rise in search frequency in 2017. So that makes, people are Googling us. People are Googling polyamory and finding out that this is a perfectly valid lifestyle option. Now, this article is also really helpful because at the end of it, Alan puts in some thoughts of his from a speech he gave at New York Poly Pride in 2008, where I had the pleasure of meeting him and also hearing his speech. And he points out a couple of key things when you're talking to friends or relatives or even a room about polyamory. Things like continue stressing that successful poly requires high standards of communication, ethics, integrity, generosity, and concern for everyone affected. That please emphasize that poly is not for everyone. Monogamy is the right and best choice for many people. This is about relationship choice. Insisting on the part of the definition that stresses respect for everyone all around and full knowledge and consent of all involved. And expanding that beyond knowledge and consent, but well-wishing and good intention for all involved. And he does close out by reminding you to warn people that while poly can open up extraordinary new worlds of joy and wonder and may help to humanize the world, its benefits must be earned through courage, hard relationship honesty work, self-examination, tough personal growth, and a quick readiness to, as they say in the Marines, choose the difficult right over the easy wrong. So, bandwagon, but wise and cautious approach to the bandwagon. Next up, also from December 14th, there was an article in the Inquirer Daily News from Philadelphia that featured some of our favorite poly people. You guys know Kevin, who has co-hosted the show on numerous occasions. Well, he and his wife, Antoinette, were the subject of a pretty good article about polyamory in the Inquirer Daily News. That's right. It's quite a nice profile of them, and it's relatively accurate and shows polyamory in a realistic light. The only quibble I have is they define solo poly as somebody who doesn't want a primary relationship, which is not correct, but, I'm just very pleased that they actually did a decent profile of real poly people to show you what it's really like to have and live in a poly relationship. And of course, Kevin and Antoinette are some of the best representatives of poly out there. Now, what's interesting is there was a follow-up to that article written by Clarence E. Wright, who apparently is the pastor of the church that Kevin and Antoinette attend. This was posted December 15th, the day afterwards. And he says, and this is, by the way, posted to his own personal blog. And he says, the poly triad featured in the article are members of the Love Zion Baptist Church where I serve as pastor. While I was surprised to stumble upon the article, the nature of their relationship has been common knowledge for some time. The article does well documenting the growing number of non-monogamous relationships, so I will not spend time detailing the trend. Instead, I'll address the topic from a theological and church practitioner standpoint. Now here's what's next. He says, at the Love Zion Church, our official position remains that God's ideal for marriage is one man and one woman. However, without contradicting that doctrinal statement, My position as a pastor is that I love all of my members just as God does. As such, they are welcomed, they are loved, and they are fully included in the life of the church regardless of marital status, gender identity, or sexual practice. So, I actually think that's a pretty good response. And I'm actually kind of in awe, first of all, that a pastor, keeps a blog and writes in such a, a personal style as opposed to lecturing specifically on more religious topics. And that he was so accepting is pretty fucking awesome. So congrats on Kevin and Antoinette for a great profile, and props to you and your pastor for being open and kind and compassionate and down to earth about this whole thing. And that's the news that came up this week, and so I will now hand you over to the capable hands of our South African correspondent Erich Viege, who did a fantastic interview with Isabelle Broué, also known as Isa Lutine, talking about her film projects, including her latest project called Lutine le film. Take it away, Erich.
Move over, Woody Allen, because French film director Isabelle Broué has a new film out. It's called Lutine, and it's about polyamory. She's the director of a 2004 film called Tout, plaisir pour moi,
which called The Pleasure Is All Mine. And it's about a woman who loses a clitoris. And it's about women pleasure in sex and masturbation. So, it's a romantic comedy talking about sex.
Her film Lutine has been doing quite well at film festivals.
At the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival, where it won the Best Feature Award and the Best Screenplay Award.
Tell us a little about the film. It's a docudrama, docu...
It's not a docudrama at all. It's a comedy. It's a comedy including a documentary. So the thing is, it's a comedy about a filmmaker, whom I play myself, who decides to make a documentary about polyamory. And at some point, she realizes it's not that easy because people don't want to be filmed. So she starts to hire actors to play the part of polyamorous people that she already interviewed, but who don't want to be in the film. And she also starts to ask her boyfriend if she can film him so that people can see his reactions when he's hitting on by a polyamorous woman whom she interviews, and he says, "Oh no, because my ex-wife will recognize me." So she imagines that she's going to hire an actor to play his part, and at this point, it's just like a mixture of you don't know what's real, what's not, what's fiction, what's not fiction, but inside the film itself, you don't even know, because there are two actors playing the same part. The real boyfriend and the actor who plays the part of the boyfriend, and there are actors playing polyamorous people, and they're real polyamorous people, and real polyamorous people playing their own parts, such as Françoise Saint-Père, who's the author of the Art and Etiquette of Polyamory. I think that's the title in English. So she plays a part. So it's a mixture of pure fiction and absolute documentary, and the gray area in between when you don't know whether it's fiction or...
It sounds very French. Tell us a little bit about the reception of the film. How has the film been received?
So the poly community has received it so well. It's fantastic. It's people tell me it's been the poly film we've been expected, and finally a poly film that doesn't end in killing one of the persons. In all so-called poly film about multiple relationships, at the end either one dies or the first couple gets together and the third person is ejected, that's the majority of film about multiple relationships. You always end up with only two persons at the end, even if you were three at some point. People told me, wow, that's great. That's finally a poly film from the inside and with a good ending. So I have the poly ending.
What caused you to want to make the film in the first place?
I wanted to make a second feature film before the 10th anniversary of the shooting of my first feature. And I had 6 months ahead of me to be there before the 10th anniversary. So at some point I said, okay, I'm not going to find a producer and get money. So I'm going to write something that I can shoot myself without asking money from anyone.
The stereotype is that the French are all open and everybody's got a mistress and there's no problem. And François Mitterrand, his mistress was at his funeral, standing next to his wife. So tell us a little bit about the stigma in France.
Yes, it's true. Adultery is a national sport, I think. But adultery, not polyamory. So people cheat. And that goes together with monogamy. The two are very good friends, monogamy and adultery. And it's, nobody is ever going to call out a political man for having mistresses. Not like in the States. Still, you should not tell about it. And polyamory, why do you have this need to talk about it? Like, what we get is, okay, everybody does that. I mean, everybody has cheated, but why do you have to tell it? That's the kind of reaction that we get. And so we try to explain, we are not cheating since everybody knows about it. I say, well, that's, you're playing with words. It is cheating. Oh, it's not cheating. And that's how we, the whole discussion. So we do have the same stigma, I think, as everywhere else about polyamory.
So that's so interesting how the talking about it is stigmatized, even though everybody knows that it's happening. Whereas in Anglo-Saxon land, everybody pretends it's not happening. And it's much more secret, I think, than it is in France.
It is secret. I mean, it has to be secret. So when people tell you everybody does it, it's never on the, and it's never open. It's just like, talking behind doors, like shut up. Don't talk about it. Why do you have to talk about it? It has nothing to do with public recognition that everybody's doing it, right? It's still totally secretive.
So tell me about your own polyamory journey then, and how did you come to this way of relating?
I discovered polyamory by a friend almost 9 years ago. And he himself had discovered it from an American couch surfer from San Francisco. So just a girl came to his flat as a couch surfing host and told him about polyamory, and he was like, wow! So he told me about it, and that was the very, very, very beginning of the first café police that we had in France. That is poly meeting in cafes. And at that was beginning of 2009. I was just getting separated from the father of my children, and I was pregnant.
But still, it's not easy to be separated and pregnant at the same time. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I was so happy, and I was totally flown with hormones. Really, it's people were just like, "Oh my God, you poor girl!" And I'm so happy. So I discovered polyamory this way by going to the very first meeting when we were like 10 people. Every 2-3 months, whenever one of us wanted to have a meeting. And I absolutely immediately recognized it as home. Like, of course. How else can you relate? To me, it was obvious that it was made for me. I mean, it was just like a revelation. So I started going to the poly cafes and started being into the poly French community. And we started as we were like 10, 12, then 20, then 30. Then we decided to have a monthly cafe. So it grows from the moment on that we had a regular meeting. Every month, people knew that where to find us at the same time every month in this cafe. So rapidly, it was like, we were not 20. When I shot the film, that's 4 years ago, 2013, we were 30. Every month, 30 people. A year later, we were like 60, then 80, and now we are 100. So we had to change 3 times of cafes because it's growing. When it started in Paris 9 years ago, it was only in Paris. And now it's everywhere in France. Every month, we have a new cafe in a new city. So there are cafes in Avignon, Lyon, Marseille, Toulouse, Montpellier, Strasbourg, Nancy, Nantes. Every month we have a new cafe.
So what made you become an activist?
So what I didn't tell you is that I started as a solo poly, being pregnant and having multiple partners and telling them, each of them, that I had other lovers, which at the time was a way of protecting myself also. And that was, it probably was easier to have men have sex with me since I was pregnant. And that was a way to tell them, please don't, I'm not looking for a father for my child. I just want to have sex with you. Is it okay with you? So being poly was a way of reassuring them as well as reassuring me, myself, that I didn't want to get into a relationship anymore. And I didn't want to hear about couples or coupledom or whatever looked like prison to me. It lasted for 2 years, approximately, until I met the man who's my partner in life today and has been for more than 6 years now. We met on OkCupid, like hi OkCupid community. And this is where I discovered that being poly is not only having multiple partners and having fun about it, but it's also about dealing with your own emotions when you're in love, and it is not that easy. And so I started to discover my own emotions and my own bits of jealousy and crisis, like, no, you can't do that, but please do, because I know that you want to, and I want to have fun, but not you, and that sort of crap. Not crap, but emotions. And that's where I wanted to make the documentary at some point, because I needed to understand myself.
I think I like covering the popular culture around polyamory because I like hearing how the artist has to make sense of their own experience. And in so doing, they help us make sense of our experiences as well. And that's valuable for our community. Isabelle Broué told me she learned a lot about polyamory just transcribing the interviews and actually editing her own film.
And I remember when I was editing the film and I was, writing the transcripting the dialogues that they had told me in the interviews, I was like, okay, oh, I understand better. And hearing again and again and again, days after days and months after months, about jealousy and about how jealousy is your own insecurities and how you can deal with your emotions, how you can work on your emotions. And all this, I just heard it from my own film. When people were explaining to me.
One of the unintended benefits of making a film is that you go out and mix with the audiences, international audiences, and engaging with polyamory at conferences outside France was a revelation for Isabelle Broué.
When I showed it the first time, it was in Lisbon, 2 years ago, at the first international non-monogamy and contemporary intimacy conference. This is where I discovered my first workshops. About saying yes, saying no. We didn't have that in France. How to handle, somebody's telling you no, and you say, oh, thank you for, sharing your truth with me. And I was like, wow, what is this? Who are those people? People who had seen it in Lisbon wanted to show it in their own communities. So the film started its own journey. So from Lisbon, it went to Barcelona. And then from Barcelona, it went to Roma. And from Roma, and I started just traveling with the film. Then I went to Berkeley, and then I met some of the members, because there are so many, of the poly community from San Francisco. So that's how I became activist, by traveling with the film and discovering what others were already doing, like workshops, and support groups and all sorts of things. And I said, if this is so helpful to me, that I want to bring it back to France. And this is how it all started, I think,
So, how do we go about arranging screenings? How does that work?
Easy. You ask me, I say yes, and I send you a link, and you show the film. The only thing that I'm asking for now is that those are public screenings, or semi-public at least, like Facebook events or some sort of public events, because this is how I slowly built my own promotion. So that's it. You write to me and you tell me, I'm a poly activist in this country, this town. I would like to show the film on this date, and I'm going to create a Facebook event or put it on my website, and will be at least 20 people. And then I send you the link with WeTransfer, and that's it. You download the film, you have it on your computer, and you have it on your screen. What I ask also to the people is to have to give the audience sheets of paper to write reviews, so that I can have reviews. And I like to have reviews in all languages. So last time I have reviews in Finnish, and I don't understand what they told me, and I love it. And also I ask people to, if they to give a donation, like a free donation. I need money to put the film into festivals, and this takes a lot of cash. That was for the screenings. The only thing that I'm asking is reviews and donations.
And then Isa, you say we write to you. How do we write to you? What's your address?
On my website, you go to the film site, lutinelefilm.com. lutinelefilm.com.
And then Isa, are there any other projects you're working on at the moment that we should be aware of?
Well, I'm writing a new film about polyamory, and I'm working on getting Lutine on the French screens, and I'm writing a book about polyamory, because I've been reading so fantastic books in English, but there is nothing in French except from the book from Françoise Saint-Père. People really need it. And so I'm writing about ethical relationships, positive relationships. I come from abusive relationships, and I know a lot about abusive relationships. And writing about polyamory is just the opposite. It's to me, it's writing about positive relationships, or at least what it should be, and what is ethics, and what are ethical relationships, and writing about consent, and welcoming the emotions. And of course, I'm aware that there are abusive relationships in polyamory, of course. So this is why I'm writing about ethical and positive relationships, and what it is and what it should not be when you are in a relationship.
Well, I think let's wrap that up. Isa, merci beaucoup pour votre temps. C'était vraiment un plaisir.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Hein?
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's just have a quick summary there. The director's name is Isabelle Broué, but you can find her at lutinelefilm.com. If your poly group would like to screen the film, here are the steps. It needs to be a public or semi-public screening with, say, 20 or more people. Advertise it on Facebook or Meetup or whatever you decide, because the more people see the film, the more buzz it creates, and the more likely it is that a distributor will then pick it up. You then get hold of Isa. You can find her at her film website, lutinelefilm.com, and I'll spell that for you. It's Lutine, le film, LEFILM.com. I'll put all the links in the show notes. So you get a hold of Isa at lutinelefilm.com. You tell her where and when the screening will take place, and she will then join the group via Skype after the screening to take any questions if you'd like her to do that. She's asking for two things. Please to write reviews on paper, on pieces of paper, so that she can put those reviews on her website in your own language. So she wants each language to have its own page on the website. And in fact, you can go to lutinelefilm And you can see in Catalan and Finnish and all sorts of different languages, even Chinese now, because the film's being dubbed into Chinese or translated into Chinese because it's being screened in Taiwan. She also needs to collect some money. So she's asking you please to raise $80 or $100 per screening. And that way she can enter into more film festivals. It did win the best film and the best screenplay in Vancouver. And entering the film into festivals costs money. And that also helps get the film in front of more audiences. She will then send you a link. And you download that film, and it'll be a watermarked version of the film. So if the film does land up on the internet, the leak can be traced back to an individual screening. So I'm Erich Viege, and I'll see you at the movies. Back to you, Minx.
Thanks again, Erich, for that fabulous and multicultural interview. I love that you're bringing a perspective that is not just the boring North American one, blah, blah, blah. So thank you for that. And again, her website is lutinelefilm.com, and I'll provide links to that in the show notes at polyweekly.com or on the show notes section of your app wherever you listen to Polyweekly. It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly polyamorists everywhere. And this week's Happy Poly Moment is from Angel, who said, "Holy crap, I had an HR meeting to come out officially about a long-term poly triad. It went so well, so extremely well, beyond my expectations. HR said she respected me even more now for being so brave and assured me that the company doesn't care how many people I love, and if they did, those people didn't need to be at the company. She's going to research how to get relationship structure somehow included within our discrimination policy. She's telling me I should be able to bring both partners to my Christmas party and post our recent engagement in the company newsletter. And we talked about implementing a safe zone atmosphere and getting the company registered as an LGBT-friendly workplace. We covered it all. And yes, I'll get maternity leave as the adoptive mom. She thinks it's beautiful and wonderful and gave me a hug as I was leaving. It couldn't have gone better. I'm so freaking happy I could cry. Not only am I free to come out, but I'm going to help change the company culture. She's going to talk to the owner about all my questions." Angel, I agree. I don't think that could possibly have gone any better. That is remarkable. Now, who knows how the owner will respond, but the fact that your HR representative is willing to do that and reach out and not just tolerate, but actually fight for you and have a more inclusive workplace is fucking awesome. Congratulations. Well, that about wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank everyone who wrote in or called in. I want to thank Alan for doing the Poly in the News blog, and to Erich for putting together that awesome interview. And I want to thank all our Polyweekly playmates who contribute monthly, subscribe on a monthly basis, without really receiving any benefits from that, apart from my thanks and my personal appreciation. Because we are a free resource, we do help hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to polyamory, and your donations keep the podcast free for everyone both inside and outside the community. And by the way, the more positive reviews we get in Apple Podcasts, the more discoverable the podcast is. And same is true for the other podcatchers, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it is that you listen, please review us. And if you have feedback, polyweekly@gmail.com, call 802-505-POLY, or you can message us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/polyweekly. Thanks for listening, everyone, and remember, it's not all about the sex.